If you've ever wondered what the Big Ten Zoom meeting went when deciding how and when to return to play football in the middle of a pandemic, or if you wanted to be a fly on the wall during the invitation only of the NFL QB's meeting after week one or week two, there's only one person who was there for all of it. And how is because she created the whole damn thing herself, which is incredible. She's a sports reporter for Wood TV and Channel 8 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, sideline reporter for the NBA G League Grand Rapids squad, and without question, the best self-video content creator in the biz. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege, pleasure, and honor to have on our show here on the Full Court Press, Annie Agar. Annie, my goodness, how in the world are you? Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Wow, what an entrance. I
You like
love
that?
it.
I've been practicing that it's probably 18 times now. 17 we're in the mirror.
You nailed it.
Annie, I know you've been asked this 100,000 times, but I'm going to make it 100,001. How did you come up with the idea to do your first video? If I'm not mistaken, was the Big Ten video. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. Yeah, that's a great question. So, this all kind of started back when, like you said, the COVID was going on, coronavirus, and we kind of were all quarantined. And so being a sports reporter, you didn't really have work. I mean, as a lot of people in the sports industry didn't have. And so my first instinct was to think about how football season would be impacted because, that's something we completely look forward to in the off season. And then, thinking about the Big Ten in particular, because I grew up in Big Ten territory and that's primarily what we cover at my station. So I thought about, how they would kind of all be working together to get football season back up and running. And obviously the go-to for everybody during quarantine was Zoom calls because that's kind of all we had. We were doing happy hours over Zoom calls and work meetings. And so I thought, if the Big Ten had a meeting, it would be over Zoom. And then how funny would that meeting look because they all kind of hate each other, with the rivalries in conference, but they all want the same thing. So yeah, the idea was just kind of born that way, and I just took off with it.
Okay, so people make videos all the time. But my goodness, as of today, your video for that Big Ten has 22,000 views, just over that, over 4,500 retweets on Twitter. Did you ever see it taken off the way it did?
Not at all. No. Originally when I did it on TikTok, and I was new to it, as a lot of people were this year, and someone else had tweeted it out, and it started getting a lot of traction, and then I had shared it on my page, and it just took off. People like Rich Eisen were commenting on it and retweeting it, and Desmond Howard and Kirk Herbstreit.
Oh
That's
my
when
gosh.
I stepped back and I thought, holy cow, this is absolutely just blown up.
I know this is an egocentric question to ask you, but who's the most famous person you've heard from since you've been doing these videos?
That's a great question. There's been so many cool people. Pat Forty's been a really cool one that's reached out, and he continues to kind of show support and message me and share my stuff. And so I think the constant, he's still behind every video that I've done. That really has been a big impact on me. And, I look up to him in the sports industry, and he's had only nice things to say. And so to see that has been incredible. And like I said, Desmond Howard and Kirk Herbstreit, people I grew up watching on College Game Day, share my content has been incredible. I think the biggest one was, ESPN put out the video, and to see my name next to the ESPN logo was, something I've dreamed of for years. So that was pretty neat.
How long does it take you to make a video?
And
that includes creating the lines and everything. How long does it take you?
Right. So, the longest part kind of is printing out all the logos and cutting all those up for the shirts. And then once that's done, there's been a lot of times where I don't even have kind of a script written out. I know of the jokes I want to make, but my big thing is I change in between each character because I want it to be as if it's a Zoom call, right? And so I want them to play off each other. So I'll have, the Chicago Bears say something, and then I'll have, the Lions respond back because that would be the dynamic of their division. So stuff like that. So a lot of the time it just is, trial and error of how I want the video to flow. So it takes a good, hour and a half, 2 hours to kind of finish the video.
Favorite video so far you've made?
Oh gosh, you're coming at me with the big questions. Wow, I did a quarterback call week 1, and I think that was my favorite so
Was
far.
that the one with the Jay Cutler at the end?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, that one was good. That was a nice little twist at the end. I like that one.
Thank you.
How many shirts of teams do you have in your closet?
Oh, that is a great question. Probably too many.
No
I
such
have a
thing.
lot of jerseys as well, but then the ones I don't have, like I said, I print off the logos, but then I'll save those shirts for if I need to use them later. So there's quite a few of them currently.
Okay, so I'm a jersey collector as well. Jersey you're most proud of to have?
Oh, I have a Clay Matthews Packers jersey, and I loved Clay. And my mom got it for me for Christmas one year, complete surprise, and I will cherish that thing till the day I die.
Where does your sports fandom come from? Talk to me about. I mean, it's Michigan, so it's diehard rabid sports fans everywhere. Whether you're a Wolverine or a Spartan or whatever it is, where did yours come from, and when did it really take off for you in your sports career?
Yeah, so people, ask me that a lot. Being working in the sports industry, obviously, you have to have some sort of background and want to get into this industry, and that started for me. My dad actually played 4 years in the minors for the Tigers, so he went through the farm system and everything, and he taught us really early that sports is this great thing. And we used to sit around the dinner table, we talk about what NFL games were going to happen that week, and that was just how I grew up. So at a very young age, I knew I wanted to get into sports broadcasting and, be that connecting factor between the athlete and the fan. And I love that. And that, sports reporters were that person for me. So that's kind of where, the sports fandom comes from. And then just being in Michigan, I mean, everywhere you look, there's a Michigan State fan. It's, we don't take it lightly in the Midwest, especially for football. So it just kept, being amplified. And then I myself am an Ohio State fan, so not a lot of friends where I live. but that's
How
kind of
does
added to it because
I'm so sorry. I got to
go
interrupt you. I apologize. How in the world does that happen that you're in Michigan
ahead.
and you're a diehard Ohio State?
Oh yeah, it's a fun story. It's a fun story. So I have an older brother who's a big Michigan State fan. My grandpa went there, my dad went there, and so I love Sparty. But growing up, he wanted me to be a Michigan State fan so badly, and we obviously grew up not liking U of M, not being a fan of U of M. So I when I was playing basketball in high school, or I guess middle school, I loved Evan Turner, who played basketball for Ohio State. And he had a shot against Michigan, obviously in the Big Ten tournament, and that just sealed the deal. And I thought, I can really annoy Michigan fans if I'm an Ohio State fan. And then conveniently around that same time, I was in high school and I was, wanted to talk sports with guys. And I realized really quickly that if you want to know your stuff and you want them to take you seriously, it's a lot more fun to be on the opposing side. And then you really have to argue your point. So being an Ohio State fan in Michigan was so much fun, and I took it and I ran with it because you had to prove yourself, and Michigan and Michigan State fans would make it their point to prove you wrong. So I think it really helped on that front, really making sure I knew what I was talking about.
I'm sorry I interrupted you there. That blew my mind though, because I lived in Ohio for 2 years, and I know how rabid that fan base is, and yeah,
Oh, for sure.
it's amazing.
No.
What is it like? And I ask this with incredible respect for what you do, but in this industry, it's hard to get into for you and I. But as a woman, and there's so many great women in the sports industry who do an incredible job. For you, what was the journey like, and what were the lessons you learned?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's when I got into it as a female, I never went into it thinking, well, I know I'm going to be treated differently. I want special treatment because I'm a female. I just went into it thinking if I get a job in sports, I'm going to get the job because I work the hardest, not because I'm a female or maybe if I didn't get a job, I wouldn't say, well, it's because I'm a female. I have to work harder. And so that's, kind of the mentality I like to take in this industry. But I've been blessed to not have any of those obstacles really, other than, the small ones. And with these videos, there's some comments that you kind of look at and you think, oh, geez, like would a guy get that in sports? But at the end of the day, you're going to get that in any industry. It's going to be, people saying you can't do it or, people questioning things. So, the best thing to do is just work as hard as you can and be proud of what you've produced. And so, that's kind of the way that I look at things. And like I said, I've loved this industry. It's so fun. And every day I get to go, even if it's the smallest sport or, it's a high school football game, it's still the most fun thing that's happened in my day. And you can't complain when that's your job.
I know I've been asked this a ton of times, and I'm sure you have as well. What is your dream goal job at the end?
Oh, yeah, I know. That is the $100 question, $1 million question maybe. But, obviously everybody's goal in sports is ESPN or, NFL Network. And I'd love to have a show. I'd love to, be at that top level. And I always say at the end of the day, like I said, that connection between the fan and the athlete is my favorite thing. So if I can get to the highest level and impact as many people as possible with that connection, meaning, I can bring some laughter to fans that watch NFL Network or ESPN, then that would be the ultimate goal for me.
Who's your I don't know how to ask this. If there's a sideline reporter, an analyst that you listen to or look up to the most, who would that be?
Probably, as of lately, it's been Maria Taylor. I just think I love how when she talks with guys like Stephen A. and super dominant personalities, she walks into that room and asserts herself and lets them know she has an opinion too, but does it in kind of a funny, classy way. And so that's kind of, I look up to her because I want to have that same kind of personality, I guess, on air.
Annie Agar here, joining us here on the Full Court Press. Annie, give me your thoughts on this Big Ten season, what it's going to look like. Obviously, you got 3 top 10 teams, or at least 2 of them contending for a national championship, most likely in Ohio State and in Wisconsin. Where does Michigan fit? Where does Michigan State fit? What do you see here?
Yeah, I think this will be a really interesting year, and that's why we wanted this season so badly, because there's so many question marks surrounding the Big Ten. I mean, from not so much with Ohio State, obviously, and they're clearly the front runner to win, and that's not biased. That's just my opinion. But when it comes to Michigan State, I mean, Mel Tucker is going to run a completely different offense. I know State fans are super excited to see how that plays out. And with Michigan, I mean, so many things are on the line for Harbaugh with this season and this year, and how he does there. And then you've got team like you said, Wisconsin is obviously going to have a great season, but then you have teams like Indiana that might show us a little bit more than they have in the past, and Minnesota with PJ Fleck. And so I think there's a lot of storylines that could play out, and the main one is just what's going to happen. There's question marks. We're worried about the health of everybody and the players with COVID and everything, but at the end of the day, there's just so many ups and downs that are going to happen this season, and the schedule it'll be really interesting.
Based on the unique year that this is, with the pandemic and the football seasons being suspended for an amount of time, should the football playoff be expanded to allow more teams in, or do you like it at 4 for this year?
That's a great question. I think I like it the way that it is, and that being, with everybody said with the Pac-12, they're not playing and everything, and that's going to affect the playoff, and it's not going to meet as much. But I mean, not to be mean, but even if the Pac-12 got in, look at historically they haven't even gotten to the playoff 9 times out of 10. So it's not going to be that much different. So I would be good with them expanding it back out, but at the end of the day, I think this year already has kind of an asterisk by it. So let's just get it done, have a good season where we can, hopefully come to a good conclusion about who won it and who took home the title, and then kind of move forward from there. So I think the way it is right now is, it's as good as it's going to get, I think.
As a Big Ten fan, what's the least conference you like?
Oh, that's interesting. I think it's the SEC, and just because there's kind of an unspoken rivalry there. We have the players that, the tough, grind it out kind of guys, the big D-line, O-line guys that just, we run it up the gut. And then there's SEC with the more, artistic players. There's, the speed and the talent. And so I think there's always been that kind of, you guys focus on that, we're going to focus on this type of rivalry. So I would have to say probably that conference for sure.
Is there a rivalry outside of the Big Ten that you guys, actually, let me re-ask that question. As an Ohio State fan, is there a rivalry outside of the Big Ten that you guys have?
Yeah, personally, I'm sure it's this way for a lot of other Ohio State fans, but personally for me, it's Clemson. And you'd think it would be, more Alabama, but obviously from the history of what's happened when we played Clemson, it just is, especially lately, it's just a little like they think they're just a little bit better than Ohio State, and that just grinds their gears.
Annie, you are the BEST best. I can't tell you how much we appreciate you being on today's show. Absolute thrill and honor for me. Keep up the great work. Love following you on Twitter, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you so much for having me on, of course. Anytime.
All right, take care.